Healthy friendships are food for the soul. Indeed, the best of relationships are rooted in genuine friendship. With loneliness at epidemic levels, it's all the more important for us to know how to cultivate loving, healthy friendships. We often think that great relationships just happen, but like every truly wonderful relationship, solid friendships require effort and tender, loving care. Today, we'll focus on this listener's real life question. My daughter is in middle school. She's really struggling with making friends, and I don't know how to help her because I've never been particularly good at making friends myself. I'd appreciate any tips you can offer. And with that question as the focus of today's episode, I'm Dr. Carla Marie Manley, and this is Imperfect Love.
Welcome to Imperfect Love with Dr. Carla Marie Manley, psychologist, author, and relationship expert. I'm here to help unravel mysteries and misconceptions about love, relationships, and mental health issues, plus everything in between. Love is complicated, people are not perfect, and relationships surely can be tough. Together, we'll navigate this messy, imperfect space of real life.
Today, I'm joined by a very special guest, Jessica Speer, who will be sharing her expertise on creating and sustaining healthy friendships. Welcome to the podcast, Jessica. It's so good to see you.
Oh, so great to see you, Dr. Carla. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to chat with you all about friendship.
Well, I know that such a focus of your work is about helping people differentiate between healthy friendships and unhealthy friendships. And you've written books on the topic and books that, help us understand the concept from grade school forward. And so today I think it'll be wonderful to use that as a way to answer this listener's real life question about how her own friendship issues are impeding her in the ability to support her daughter in creating healthy friendships. So before we launch into that topic, would you please share a little bit about what makes you you?
Yes, yeah. So my name is Jessica Speer, and at this stage, I'm writing books, actually for preteens and early teens, all about their social emotional development. Because, as you said, friendships are so important in our lives, and to both our physical well-being, our mental well-being, and just as you like to focus on, just sharing our love. So I love to focus on that, especially with younger people. So I'm really driven to help all humans, including myself, learn how to connect.
Excellent. So you talk about social emotional development. Let's explore that a little bit. Please tell us more about social emotional development and why it's so important.
Yes, and this actually I think, will tie into the question that we're talking about today so well. So, all of us, over the course of our lives, we're learning these skills that are social emotional skills. We're learning how to navigate our emotions, how to manage our emotions in healthy ways. We're learning how to interact with people, cooperate and share and listen and support each other. So, these are all skills that we are learning with over time at our own pace. So there's a lot going on, especially in the childhood and the preteen and the early teen years, that will really impact friendships too. So yeah, we can dive into more on that too, because I think that'll actually help this mom as she guides her child.
So, a question for you. When we're learning friendship skills, do they, in your opinion, do they start in the home? Do they start on the playground? Do they start in elementary school? Where do you see these skills? Where do it begin to accrue?
They start, when we're little tiny babies and toddlers at home, and then with all of our caregivers. So we're picking up things all the time. We're picking up how people are treating us and whether our needs are being met and whether we're being listened to. And then we start to model that in our relationships too. So it starts very early, at home, and then it just branches out from there. So, of course, elementary school and preschool turns into a training ground for social emotional learning too.
So, for parents who are perhaps not modeling attuned, healthy behaviors, maybe they had a childhood of being bullied or not being seen or attuned to by their parents. Will these parents maybe have a more difficult time helping their kids learn about friendship and forming their own friendships?
You know what? Well, our kids are going to pick up what we're modeling for them. So but the good news is it's never too late. So if you notice that maybe you have a deficit in a certain area, like maybe you have a really hard time staying focused and listening to the person you're talking to, you can work on that and then start to model that with your kids. I feel like for me as a parent, my biggest area of personal growth happened when I became a parent, because I knew how important it was for me to be modeling and working with my kids in ways that, help them build positive skills and confidence and self-esteem. Of course, I did that not at all perfectly, but it's a great opportunity to learn and grow. So parents, don't worry if you've not done this perfectly. It is okay. Today is the perfect day to start again and to begin because we're all learning and growing.
Absolutely. And I so love that you bring it up because as parents, as role models, even if we're not parents, we can hope to do well and to keep trying, but we just don't get it perfectly. We don't. That's the nature of life. So what are some skills that you would, a few core skills that this mom or all of us could be using to feel like we're okay at forming friendships, that we can do this. It's scary to go out and put yourself out there and try to form friends. And then, you know, then we can get to the part about what happens when you form a friendship that's not healthy. But let's start with the platform of forming healthy friendships. What are some of the key pieces that we can really work on?
Yeah, and I almost feel like I want to start with one. I talk about in my book some friendship truths, and I feel like for this particular parent and her question, I want to talk about some of the friendship truths because sometimes we start there, and it might not necessarily be some a skill related thing. It could be just something happening in our environment or some developmental phase that is impacting our relationship. So one of the friendships truths that I talk about is friendships have different phases and change over time. So it could be a situation here where her child is in a situation where there's a lot of changes going on in friendship. And in middle school, that is really common. That is a huge developmental shift where, in elementary school, relationships are very much based on play and proximity. There's a big shift that happens, and it happens at a different point for every child once they start to get into the middle school years where friendships are actually more based on shared interests and levels of acceptance. And so it's no surprise that middle school is filled with friendship changes because kids are at very different developmental phases and they might actually be looking for different things in friendship. So I would want this mom to know that it could possibly one of these shifts that's happening right now in their child's life. There's a shift going on, and that is totally normal. So friendship truth number one is friendships have different phases and change over time. Another truth is that close friends can be hard to find. And so it sounds like this child is feeling like they don't have any close friends right now. And that feels really uncomfortable, especially in these preteen and teen years where kids want to be connecting with their peers. But as we know as adults, it can sometimes be hard to find close friends, especially we're in some of these developmental changes and phases. So I guess I would start there, Carl. I took you in a different direction, but for this particular question, I just want to just make sure we understand kind of the lay of the land of what might be happening with this child at this developmental phase of their life.
And I absolutely love both points because it helps us understand, even for adults who move to a different area or they're leaving college, it's about getting into situational friendships where it's just like you're saying, in early school, it's the situation. And then you start choosing your friends. It's actually
Yes.
more about, so for her to realize maybe you're not in the same play group or the same class, but now you get to choose people where there are common interests. And the other piece that I really love that you highlighted, because it'll feel so good to so many people, preteens, teens, adults, that good friends are hard to find. They truly are. It's not, and sometimes we think, we see other people and they have 20 friends, 80 friends, 3,000 friends, and those may not really be close friends. They are
Right.
just more of acquaintances. And I think, and please let me know what your thoughts on this. I think sometimes we're lucky if we have one, two, three, four truly great friends in our life.
Yeah, I agree 100%. In fact, I've got a resource in my book, and it's available anywhere if you search Jessica Speer Friendship Pyramid, that I find is so helpful for young people, because at the very, very tip of the pyramid are close friends. And it's small, because we know that it's hard to find them. It takes a lot of connection and shared interests, and levels of trust are built. So we know that they're hard to find. And in the preteen, early teen years, we might have some gaps there. So that is totally normal. And then underneath that on the friendship pyramid is just friends, which I use loosely because I think a lot of preteens and teens use it loosely too. So these could be neighbors, these could be classmates, but they're people that know you, that you have some connection with. And so that's also important too, because you never know. Some of those friends might grow into close friends over time. And then the base of the pyramid is acquaintances, all those people that we don't actually know yet, but there's a lot of possible friends out there. So I like to just state it in that way, to emphasizing that close friends are sometimes hard to find. So it feels really uncomfortable, especially for young people, if they don't feel like they have that, because they're looking around and it looks like everybody has a close friend. But that's not always the case, and let's face it, we all do friendship a little differently. Like some of us are more extroverted, and we actually might have a really small, close friend group, and some of us are much more extroverted. And so even how we manage our friendships and navigate this world is different. So I would encourage, this mom and her child to know that what she's experiencing is totally normal and okay. There's not they can definitely do some things about it too, but it's really normal in those middle school, preteen, early teen years to feel like, where do I fit? And who are my friends? And so that's a really natural thing that happens in those years.
Absolutely, and I love your pyramid, and I tend to work. It's so funny because we're using shapes. I tend to work with shapes. We have that very close circle, one circle that has maybe four people in it, if our brains can't handle a whole lot as far as very close people, and then the next circle might have, a little less intimate or a lot less intimate, and that might be another five people, and then we go out into all these different circles, and the bigger the circle, the more people there are, but the more distant they are from us intimately, emotionally, because we can't sustain all of those friendships. And then we think of people who have 5,000 Facebook friends and we think, oh, they have 5,000 friends. Well, really, those are more the acquaintances. They may have 5,000 acquaintances and they may not even know what somebody looks like who they're calling a friend. So
Yes.
so very thank you. And I love the idea of your pyramid. So listeners, Jessica's, look for her friendship pyramid, and we'll give you the spelling of her name now and later, but it's Jessica, Jessica, Spear, Speer. So look for Jessica's friendship pyramid. Now you said something that I love, absolutely love, the piece about trust, that good friendships are built on trust. Please tell us more about why that's so important for the mom, for her child, and for all of us to have friendships that we can really trust each other.
And you shared it so well when you said, our closest friends are the ones that we can really share some personal, intimate information with, because we do have that level of trust with them, but not every relationship does. And here's where it gets tricky in middle school is kids are looking for that closeness. They really want to be seen and known in their friendships, because they're starting to individuate, from their families. But often those friendships are so young and maybe the skills aren't there. So they might share something before that friendship has really developed that level of trust. And that's where a lot of people's really bad middle school memories come from, is because they are, they're looking for that closeness in a relationship and it's not there. And there's betrayal in friendships. And so it can feel like, yeah, it can feel like an unstable place for friendship, because everybody again is trying to figure out, who are my people and where do I fit? And they
Mm.
want that to happen. They really do want that connection with their peers, especially at this age. But sometimes those relationships aren't there yet, for various reasons. So it can be a tricky time, in a time where kids just really do want to be connecting at a deeper level with their peers.
So, what would you say to someone who isn't able to, they don't really know who they are? Maybe they realize they're more artsy and creative, or they're, you know, personalities different from those around them. What would you say for that child who really has not found, they're still working on finding themselves, that's part of the journey, but also they're not seeing anyone around them who will accept them. It's sort of that click barrier where you
Hmm.
can't, as you're saying, you want that connection, you're drawn toward that connection, but you're not finding your tribe, your people.
Yeah. And some kids and teens don't find that at school. I wish they all did, but some kids that are especially unique, let's say they are neurodiverse, or let's say they are super smart and really into certain things, or like you said, very artistic. So they're really unique in a certain way, and maybe they're not finding that in their school setting. So what I encourage parents to do is see, how can you connect this child to that even outside of school? Is it classes? Is it, some engaging in some sport, or some way that they can really tap into what it is that really excites them, that they're really passionate about? Because there is where they're likely going to meet people that have that connection too. So, at this age group, they are looking for similarities and shared interests. So, we as parents can help them find that connection, and it might not be at school. So keep your eyes out at ways to connect them with those things that they love and they're passionate about, and then they're more likely to meet some like-minded people.
And that makes so much sense because let's say you're interested in soccer or ballet or musical instruments, right? Then you're going to a class and you may meet someone in your school that you have been walking by and you didn't know that you shared that interest. Or maybe you'll meet someone who's in a neighboring school and you won't have somebody to be with in the school setting, but then you'll have somebody to be with after school. So that's
Yes.
a really, isn't it such a good and basic tip, but a really good one. And then for a child, and I can only imagine for this mom who's, really suffering because she's not able to really help her daughter. What about if the daughter is feeling lonely at school because she is still in that sort of wonky stage where she's trying to find her people, she isn't yet finding them in classes outside of school or settings outside of school. What could this child do? And I know there are so many of them who are going around the school day feeling so lonely, so
Hmm.
cast out. As one
Hmm.
of my clients said, I she was talking about her childhood. She said, I felt like the other. I always felt like the other. What would you
Yes.
say?
Would first maybe check in with what's going on at the school, because some schools, knowing that there are some kids that are feeling like this, they have opportunities that we might not know about as parents. For instance, a local school here, instead of going into this lunchroom, which for a lot of kids can feel really intimidating, they also have a smaller setting of kids that actually don't want to be part of that. They want a smaller, quiet setting that might have some board games out. Some teachers allow kids to come into their classroom and maybe do some special work for them. So I would figure out, is there another option? Because lunchtime is often the time where it feels the worst, where you are feeling lonely and you walk into that big lunchroom. So see if there's something else. And if there's not, can that be started? So why doesn't every school have some other options besides the big scary lunchroom? A lot of middle schools are progressing where they have some things. So this might be an opportunity to help the middle school have some other options, whether it's in the library or whether it's in a few teachers' classrooms. So some options so those kids don't have to just walk into that library or the lunchroom all by themselves.
And that's such a good idea. I didn't think of that there are these other options now where kids can go and there they may find like-minded souls, people who
Hmm.
like playing card games, like playing Monopoly, whatever it is that they want to do. And again, building friendships, not in the traditional way that we think of, sharing lunch with someone out in the quad or in the lunchroom, but in a more private setting, one that would probably be a lot better for introverts.
Absolutely. It's a lot of schools are doing this. I'm excited to see that. So see if that can be started at the school if that's not happening yet.
And I love that you come up with that idea too, that if it's not there, see about starting it. Let's
Yes.
not get complacent. Let's see about being advocates for our kids to create situations where they can bloom, where they can
Yes.
grow. Excellent.
Absolutely.
So let's segue, if you don't mind, to imagining that one of the things this she doesn't talk about it, but I imagine, many people face bullying, unhealthy friendships. And I love that one of your books talks about differentiating between people who are best friends and people who aren't really friends. So
Mhm.
if we can use that book as a platform, first talk a little bit about that book because I think it's a fabulous book and it's educational for parents and for kids of all ages because it helps us understand how to differentiate between a healthy friendship and something that really doesn't even qualify to be called a friendship because it's not.
Right. Right. And so, yeah, so my first book was called BFF or NRF, and I made that up. It's not really friends. I made up that term. And that one grew out of a friendship program that I did run for girls. And I talk about bullying, as opposed to conflict. And I feel like this is such an important concept for kids to know that I actually continue that in my second book, which is called Middle School Safety Goggles Advised. And in my most recent book, the phone book, I talk about it again too, because I feel like we all have to just really know what is bullying and what to do to stop that. So let's start there. Let's start with what is bullying, and it can be in person, and now it could be online with cyberbullying too. So how we know a situation is bullying is one, it's pretty aggressive. It doesn't have to be physical, but pretty aggressive. It's pretty mean. There's threats. It's one-sided. Okay, so it's really directed at one person. It may be an
Mhm.
individual or a group is really directing at one person, and it's repeated. Okay, so those three things. It's pretty aggressive and mean. It's one-sided, and it's happening again and again. And so that falls into bullying, and that needs to stop. And often, there might be some adult intervention that needs to happen there. Schools have rules in place to help guide in this situation. Now, how that might differ from a conflict situation, which is even more common than bullying, is both sides are involved a little bit. It can still be pretty mean and aggressive,
Mhm.
but it might not go on as much. It might be just a short fight that has it's lasts for a little bit, but then it goes away. But so that's how we know the difference between conflict and bullying. So if it is a bullying situation, it is important to get the kid the support they need to navigate that and make that stop, because we all know how detrimental that can be to their well-being and their mental health if they're in a bullying situation.
Thank you for the clarification. I do have one question on bullying. Um, is it possible, I know you said it's happening again and again, is it possible from your framework for somebody to be bullied once and then say, okay, this is bullying. I'm going to my school counselor, to the principal, to my parents. Do you see that bullying can happen once?
You know what? It can, and sometimes that falls into assault. I hate to say that. So
Uh,
it might be something that is so physical and so aggressive that it actually is a situation of assault. So yeah, so there's that too. But so yes, it can. The repeated bullying is often the most painful for kids, because they start to for those that are the target of bullying, that is going on and on, because they start to really question their own self-worth, and so
mhm.
so that's where we see a lot of the mental health impacts of bullying. But yeah, it absolutely can be a one-time event, and possibly an assault.
So when we're looking at bullying, um, and I start getting a little bit angry when I think of kids being bullied. As you may know, I had, a prior career as a teacher and as a school counselor. And so seeing kids get bullied, where sometimes it's physical and people tend to take more notice of that. like, oh, I got punched, or oh, I have a black and blue mark on my cheek from this. But it's the emotional bullying, right? That mental, that psychological torture that can be extremely damaging and more subtle. And sometimes parents aren't aware of it and they see their kids struggling to make friends, and the school setting, they can be very busy and not noticing these more subtle forms of bullying. So when we're talking about bullying, again, going back to this mom's question, so that she could keep an eye out for any bullying behaviors. What, so that the kid, the little kiddo saying, "Mom, I'm having trouble making friends." What if she's also being bullied? How could a parent spot that?
Hmm. And sometimes when they're preteens and teens, they might not want to tell us, what's happening at school.
Mm.
So we can notice some cues. So notice if they're starting to have a lot of stomach aches and feel sick and not wanting to go to school. And then also just approaching it with a lot of curiosity. Like, so staying open-minded and asking, so tell me about what's going on at school. So I get a better understanding. And tell me about, do you have any friendships that feel good, and what are those like, and what are the friendships that don't feel good, and tell me why, tell me what's happening there. So trying to open the door of communication to get a better sense of what's really happening on the ground, because the younger the kids are, they might have a hard time, one, knowing what's going on, and two, putting words to that. So come at this with a lot of curiosity, a lot of questions that are, not judgmental, just really trying to understand their world, and then be prepared to just really listen, really, and try not to react right away to what they tell us. Really listen and empathize with them. And often the best thing we could say to kids is, "Oh my gosh, that sounds really hard. I'm so sorry that happened. Oh my gosh, that's so hard." So just coming at this with a lot of compassion and empathy will help them feel seen in this too.
I think that that's a perfect explanation, and so beautiful that you emphasize that sometimes what the child wants to know is that we get it, that we say,
Mhm.
"I'm sorry, that sounds really, really rough. Would you like to tell me some more?" And being okay if there's a silence, because sometimes when we create that space of silence, we're just, making dinner or whatever, or driving the car and we let it go silent. The little kiddo comes up, or big kiddo comes up with something more that they're now ready to share that can be
Mhm.
bigger. So excellent. It's interesting. So let's jump to the mom, because the mom's, sending a signal through her question that maybe she has struggles with friendships. And since she does, she can't see, how to help her kids clearly, which is so common with all of us. Sometimes we can't see what's going on right in front of us because of our own issues or lack of awareness. So for this mom who may have, we can see that some of these patterns probably play out in adulthood, where there are friendships where adults are getting bullied by their friends, where adults are getting betrayed by their friends. And so, what do you think, if we are not working through those issues? Do you think that it could probably impact our ability to help our child or ourselves?
It absolutely can. So this is a great opportunity for the mom, if she feels like maybe she's still struggling in these areas, to get some help, and even some, not just help for her, but get some guidance as to how she can help her kids navigate this too. So it's a great opportunity for her to learn and grow, and then to learn how to help her child navigate this too.
I love that your books are so approachable, because I can envision this mom reading the book with her daughter, not to her daughter, but with her daughter, and even saying, "Hey, hun, I'm not the world's best friendship creator, so I'm going to learn along with you. I'm going to, be here with you on this journey, and I'll be able to support you better. But can we read this together, or read, a book about friendship together?" Because clearly, if I'm really hearing you right, cultivating healthy friendships is a skill.
And it takes effort, and so this can be hard for those of us that are much more introverted. We might prefer just to say, "No, thank you, we don't want to go to that event," but it does take, coming out of our shell and learning how to be friendly and learning how to follow up and connect. So it is a skill, that takes practice. And you're right, parents can learn this alongside their kids. And I do try to make my books, conversation starters. So the first book, that BFF or NRF, Not Really Friends, starts with a quiz. How healthy is my friendship? In the second chapter is another quiz. How are my friendship skills? And what I've heard time and time again is the parents that do that with their kids, that's a starting point for conversation, because they can acknowledge, oh, I'm not good at this, and I'm still not good at this. And so they can just be open about that too. We're all learning and changing. And so when we're really, honest with our kids about ourselves too, and what we're working on, and where we hope to be, and what we want to get better at, that allows them the same path to do that for themselves.
Absolutely. And I think I love the way you're approaching it because it gives parents permission also to not, take their friendship issues out on their kids if they're struggling, but for their child to see that they're not perfect. That
Hmm.
even adults, these people who are supposed to have it all together and, superheroes, that even the really important adults in their lives struggle too. And that makes it so much easier sometimes for kids to realize, oh, mommy doesn't have all the answers. She's not perfect. And I think that that's so empowering for kids.
Mhm. Yes, and to know that many of their peers are struggling too. And so that book grew out of a friendship program. And I think one of the best pieces of that program was the kids in the program could look around and see, oh, it's not just me. So that's huge. I think, when they don't realize that other people are experiencing this too, they might start to think something is wrong with me. But there's not. Everybody is navigating this in the best way they can. Some people have certain strengths, some people have certain weaknesses. So as long as they know that they're not alone, you're going through this, other peers are going through this. A lot of this is actually really normal, especially for that age range. They're going to hopefully stay away from, hey, there's something wrong with me.
And that's such wonderful advice, and you're making me think I'm going back to the mom now because I'm a firm believer that the stronger the mom, the more centered the mom, the more and dad, not just, the parents, the caregivers, the more they'll be able to be healthy, grounded role models for their kiddos. And it's interesting because I used to run a huge women's group, and friendship and romantic relationships. Those were the 2 most common issues, and adults would come and say in the group, they would say, "I can't find friends. I'm 40, I'm 50, I'm 30, I'm whatever, and no one will let me into their friend group. Everybody already has friendship, groups formed at this time." And it was, a lot of the advice that you're offering is the same support I would give them, that sometimes you just have to look in different areas and really understand friendship and all of that. And so for this mom and any adult out there who's listening who says, "Oh, but I don't have, solid friendships either." That's so normal. In today's
Yes.
disconnected world, just like you're saying for the kiddos, it's normal for them. Unfortunate, and we want to work through it and help them create healthy friendships. But for the mom as well, she may be feeling very like, I'm broken. I don't know how to do this. I don't even know how to do my own friendships. And realizing how it's a struggle for so many people, regardless of their age.
Absolutely. And so, yeah, I mean, even for me, so, sometimes when you're really into something, whether it be parenting and writing a book or whatever it is, it's easy to let those relationships go to the wayside. It's a matter of self-care to realize, oh, I'm letting this piece go away, but I really do want to have some close friends. So then we can check back in or figure out, how can I reconnect? So I still do have, a core group of friends that feel close, and that takes energy. Like, if I stop communicating with my friends, those relationships suffer. So we have to somehow find balance in our lives so that we can do that. And if we're starting from zero, which sometimes we do, maybe we move to a new place or we have a falling out, just like we talked about earlier for kids, it might be time for us to get out. We might need to go volunteer at our favorite nonprofit, or we might need to go, start a book club. So, you're getting back to, oh, okay, this is how we do this. Because, I've done it myself. I've put other priorities in my life where I've let some of my friendships, start to wane, until I realized that's happening.
Absolutely, and so human because as you said, it's so true. Friendships take energy. Relationships take energy, and sometimes when we're really busy, really maxed out in other areas, we forget that we need to also feed our friendships with lots of TLC too, even in little doses. If we don't have a lot to give, we can give little doses. So one more thing before we wrap up, because I could just keep going into this topic with you. What would you say are maybe 3, 4, 5 of the characteristics of unhealthy friendships? And again, they probably are the same for grade school as adulthood, things like disrespect, somebody talking behind your back, gossiping. What would you say? I don't want to just start from scratch. What are some of the biggest ones you see as, hey, pay attention to these. True
Yeah.
friends show friendship. They don't just use the word, they show it. So, what would you say are some of those big pieces to be on the lookout for?
Yeah, and these actually have defined on the same page as the friendship pyramid. So these are some of my not really friend traits. One is you feel really uncomfortable being yourself. You feel like you can't share who you are with this person. Two, maybe they're a friend sometimes, but other times they're not at all a friend. So it doesn't feel like very consistent. Three, it doesn't feel very emotionally safe. To share your deeper emotions, your deeper thoughts. So that doesn't feel safe. And let's see, what's the other one? Let's leave it at that. I think a lot of it goes with how we feel after spending time with that friend. So sometimes after we spend time with that friend, we actually feel worse. So how I know if this is a really wonderful friendship is after we, went for our walk together or whatever, I just feel energized and I feel seen and I feel heard and I know, oh, this is so great for my soul, this relationship. So if we have the opposite effect after spending time with that friend, we know that maybe this is not a not really friend situation. It's not healthy for us, which is always tricky. But those are some key indicators if it's a friendship. It's not really a friendship.
Excellent. I couldn't think of a better way for you to sum things up. So a good friend, we we know if they're not letting us be ourselves, they're not a true friend. If they're not consistently predictable as showing up as a good friend consistently, um, not a good friend. We don't feel emotionally safe, not a good friend. So excellent pieces. And then on the opposite side, the big, umbrella is if you feel like the relationship is good for your soul. Doesn't mean it's perfect, but overarchingly good for your soul. You can work through things that come up. You can be your real self. The person is trustworthy, honest, safe. You can share with them. That is a good friend.
Yes, yes. And let me preface that with so for younger people, yes, since they are developing these skills, they might not have a lot of friends that fall into that close friend, all those wonderful things, because these are new friendships. They're young people, they're making mistakes. So that is hard. They might not have that. And that's why I put a lot of emphasis in, I'm going to put in quotes, friends, because they're not perfect. But if we realize everybody's growing and changing, and some of these friends, in these preteen, teen years, they might change as these kids learn and grow. Now, that doesn't mean you have to try to be close friends with them, or there might need to be some boundaries in place. But what we described as those close friendships, there's not a lot of very young friendships that have all those, which is why those middle school years can feel unsettling to a lot of kids is they
Mm.
don't have those skills yet, but they are longing for them. But what's cool to see, and now that I've got some kids in high school, is how they get there, how they grow, how they learn to be a good friend, which is a process that happens over time.
And I love that you said that it's a process, there's skills. So if your kiddo's having trouble building friendships, have them look for these skills, nurture these skills, and maybe even ask their friends to come forward a little bit. And if the friend maybe could even read a book about friendship with them so they could cultivate healthy skills. Because I think it's so important for us to realize that friendship truly is a skill.
Mhm.
solid friendships, not the kind of, hey, let's go out and have a drink together and, that's fine. It's and talk about superficial things or whatever. But that's somebody to be with, some companionship. But a true friend, you do have to really cultivate and nurture these skills throughout life.
Yeah. And sometimes, there's changes and it's not a fit anymore. So I see this a lot in middle school. If someone is, farther along developmentally and maybe they're way into crushes and then, someone isn't. And that could be such a big disconnect that can cause a fault in that friendship. Or maybe somebody is starting to really do some risk-taking behavior and it's making the other person in the friendship uncomfortable. So also understanding that sometimes there are relationships that just aren't a great fit for this stage where you are in your life. Even if it was a great fit earlier, it might not be a great fit now. So listening to our kids, if they're starting to get the sense that this relationship doesn't feel great anymore, it might just be that too. It might be the fit at this stage where they are.
Absolutely. And so many of the pieces you're talking about, they apply to adulthood too.
Hmm.
For people to realize, listeners to realize, even if you don't have kids, a lot of these principles, maybe you have a niece, nephew, but if not, a lot of these principles apply to adult friendships.
Yeah.
And especially the one about no matter the relationship, it's going to take some effort and some TLC. So,
Yes.
Jessica, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and your time and your energy. Where can listeners find you?
The easiest place is my website, which we talked about earlier, is Jessica Speer, SPEER.com. And that has links off to my socials. And I've got resources on my website and information about my books. But yeah, it was such a joy to chat with you. And thank you for all the amazing your work doing, helping all of us learn to connect better and learn to love better.
Well, imperfectly, but we keep trying, Jessica, don't we? We
Yes, we
keep
do.
because we're human. So thanks again and take good care.
Thanks so much for sharing your time with me today. Remember, you have the power to transform your life and love fearlessly, if imperfectly, and it's my privilege to help you along the way. You can find more life-changing content, including my books and other podcast episodes, at drcarlamanley.com. Feel free to submit your own confidential questions through my website. I'll do my very best to include your issue on a future episode. If you found this podcast helpful, please subscribe and leave a review. Until we connect again, this is Dr. Carla Marie Manley wishing you oceans of blessings and love. Please note, this podcast is psychoeducational in nature and is not intended to replace formal mental health support. Please contact your healthcare provider or emergency hotline if you need psychiatric care. And as always, please take good care of your amazing, wonderful self.